Tom pulled me on my day off. He really wanted this. I'm glad to see we have a little turnout, so that's cool. So what we're going to use today for our login reg is going to be some session middleware. Keep in mind it's not the only way to handle login reg. You could also be using tokens, JWTs. All right. But today we're going to use sessions. So let's actually install what we need for that. So I'm in my my authors project here. This is where we're going to add some authentication. So I'm going to go npm I, and then we're going to install ExpressSession. The other thing that I want to install is a module called Bcrypt. Does anyone know why I want to install that?
To hash the password.
Yeah, we want to hash those passwords. We don't want to store them in plain text, right? So let's install both of these guys. Okay, excellent. And while those are installing, let's go over here to just look up ExpressSession on npm. Oops.
Did you say it's Express Bcrypt or is it just Bcrypt?
Two separate things. So there's express-session and then Bcrypt. All right, so if we look up ExpressSession on here on npm, it'll give us some information on how we can actually use this. So let's go down to the example that they have here. So as you guys can see, we're going to be adding some middleware, right? We've seen this before when we say app.use. Only this time we're going to be invoking the session function, which we're going to get by requiring ExpressSession. And then we're going to pass in this options object. So let me just grab that here. Go back to our code. And let's open up our server.js file. Okay, so in addition to requiring Express, let's also require session. So we'll say, oh, that never works. What's wrong with this? What's wrong with this door?
I got it.
Oh, pulling up works? Okay.
Yeah, but I can get the push forward and then
It's like extra security.
Okay, so let's require ExpressSession so that we have reference to it here in this file. And then after we get our app going here, we're going to add this middleware. So we're going to say app.use and then session with all of these options here. Now, keyboard cat, yeah, isn't this an awesome secret? So you guys can make that whatever you want. I can change this to something else.
Bone Daddy.
Bone Daddy, I like it. Very good. Okay, and we've got some different options. The cookie secure, we don't need that option right now because we're not using HTTPS. If you were using HTTPS, you would want to set that to secure the way they have it here, and you'd also want to say that you're setting proxy, trusting proxy. Okay. In our case, though, we're on HTTP, so we're going to leave this guy off. Comment that out. Okay, fair enough. So what this will allow us to do is keep track of somebody over subsequent requests, right? So if I log somebody in and I store that person's user ID, I'll be able to go retrieve information about that user on later requests. All right, cool. So the other thing that we're going to need, since we're going to have users now, is we're going to need a users model. So let's go inside of our server folder here and go inside our models. We only have an author model right now. Let's create a user one. And what do I need inside my models always? Mongoose. All right. And then let's create that user schema. So we'll say user schema equals new mongoose.schema. Okay. And let's just say we want first, last email, right? All the basic kind of stuff. First name, type, string, required, true, And then our message would be, please enter your first name. Okay, I'm just going to copy this down for last name. Whoops, I need a comma though. Jesus. All right, let's just bring that guy down. We'll say this is last name. Last name. Then we want email. Let me just copy this guy here. Your email. Alright, what else do we want? So we also want to have some kind of a password, right? Alright, so let's say password, string again. I'll grab this. Password. Maybe also on the email, I might want to say that make a requirement that it's unique, right? We probably won't test that very much, but it might be a good thing for you guys to incorporate, like, so that you don't have someone register with the same email twice.
Black belt.
Yeah, like, so kind of, that's a sensei bonus right there.
That doesn't give you error messages though.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why I don't really want to mess with it so much. We'll just put it in there. And maybe we'll test it in Postman, but we just won't really deal with it on the front end for now. All right, cool. So we always want timestamps, right? All right, and then what else do I need to do? So I've got my schema here. You guys remember what the next step always is?
Create the model.
Mm-hmm.
This model.
Yes, very good. Mongoose.model, we'll say this is the user model, and then we'll pass in that schema. All right, excellent. So now that I've got my user model, I'm also probably going to establish some kind of a user's controller, right, where we can have some functionality for our users. So let's go inside here. In addition to my author's controller, let's make our user's controller. All right. Now, what do I always need to bring in when I'm in my controller files? Everyone's forgotten since they passed the test. I need to get a reference to my user model, right? So how do I do that?
Mongoose.
I need to bring in Mongoose.
That was a trick question.
Indeed it wasn't. All right, so user, and now I'm just going to invoke mongoose.model against user. Okay, excellent. And what we were doing before is we were just exporting an object from these controllers, right? So we can continue to do that here. So you could say module.exports equals this object. And I'm going to have some different methods here. So what methods might we have for a user's controller? We know we want to log them in. We also want to register them, maybe log them out. And then there might be another function that we could add in here, just get the current user, right? All right, so let's create some of these guys. So what if I'm registering a user? Okay, so again, this is going to take in a request and a response. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to do user.create, right? However, we talked a little bit before about the fact that we're going to hash these passwords, right? So now we're going to need to actually do something with Bcrypt. So let's go back here to npm and let's look up Bcrypt here. And let's see where we can go about hashing a password. Gen salt, okay. Okay, so here's what we can do. So we can run this function right here, bcrypt.hash. We're going to pass in the plain text password that the user gave us, right? And then we're going to pass in the salt rounds. So the higher that number is, the more that it's hashed, right? Theoretically, the more secure it is. We're going to go with probably an 8 for that or something. All right. So let's actually bring in Bcrypt. So up here we'll say const Bcrypt equals require Bcrypt. Okay. And the first thing that I'm going to do when I'm trying to register is probably I'm gonna want to hash this password first thing, right? Because we don't want to insert this person into our database with a plain text password. Okay, now notice that this function is asynchronous. Okay, and the syntax that I showed you here is that it actually could take a callback function. Would you guys prefer that we use a callback function, or do you want to use a promise instead? Promise, right? All right, cool. So let's just do it that way. So we'll say bcrypt.hash. And we're taking in this plain text password. Where are we going to get that from? rec.body.password, we'll say. Okay. And then the salt rounds, again, I said we'll just choose 8 for that. Basic stuff. Okay, then our .then means that we've gotten back our hashed password, right? Okay, so I'll just say hashed PW. Now, what's the other function that we need to run? We need to actually do user.create, right? Inside this callback here. So let's do user.create. Okay. And then, so rather than just passing rec.body, which we typically do, I'm going to be a little bit more explicit here. We'll say first name, rec.body. We'll just call it first, last name, rec.body.last, email, rec.body.email. And then my password is going to be what? Anybody?
The password.
Hashed PW right in there. Good. Hashed PW. Okay, cool. And then what are we going to get? So in our .then, so let's say this user was created successfully. I'm going to get back a reference to my user, right? So I'm going to do res.json user .catch e. We'll say res.json errors e. So at this point, it would probably be e.errors because we're dealing with a mongoose error, right? Potentially. Actually, I'm going to change that to e. Because what if we get a unique validation problem? That might give us a different kind of error. All right, cool. Now, what's the other thing that I want to do when this happens? So if I've successfully registered a user, do I also want to log that user in as well? I'd say that's probably a pretty good idea, right? So let's expand this callback a little bit. I'll turn it into a multi-line function here. And we'll say rec.session.userid equals user._id. Oops. Okay, so what is this doing right here, Anthony, line 17?
You're adding the user ID to the session.
Correct. So that way on subsequent requests, I know which user I'm dealing with. All right, now let's fire up this project and let's test this out in Postman. So let's go here. So we'll go node-mon server.js. Okay, and we're running on port 5000, so let's go to Postman and make a request here. Uh-oh, I forgot something though, didn't I? Did anyone catch this yet? You guys are all following along so well, but it's like, wait a minute, this isn't ready yet, is it?
You haven't made a reference to the model.
You didn't add the route.
I didn't add the route. Yes. Good. So let's go to our routes file here. So right now we're only pulling in our author's controller. So let's bring in our user's controller as well. Users CTL require controllers. Whoops, it's up one level. And then we'll say users. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to set some new routes inside here. So if I make a post request to API/users, then what's the callback that I want to run? Because I'm trying to create a user, right? So the function that we is called register. Yeah, exactly. So we'll say user CTL CTL.register. Now I'm getting a crashed error. Check this out. Schema hasn't been registered for model user. So why is that? Yeah, because in my mongoose.js file, I haven't actually required my new model, right? Because this is before we had a user model. So if we go here to mongoose.js, I was requiring author. I'll just duplicate this down here and we'll require user. Ooh. Collection.ensure index is deprecated. This was because I'm using unique as true, right? Did you see that at all, Connor? You did? Okay.
Just did what it told me.
Yeah. Use create indexes instead. But is that inside of our Mongoose options? Would I just drop that in here and say create index is true?
I don't remember how I just found something.
Oh wait, use create index like this, right? Cool, that made it go away. Okay, cool. So we're running again. We've added our routes. We should be able to actually register someone through Postman. So let's give it a try. Let's go over here. Oops. So instead of this put request, let's change this to post. And let's change this to users. And then in my body, let's do first, last, email, okay, and then our password, oops, password. All right, let's try this out. So we send our post request. Cool. So I created this user successfully, and notice here that we have this hashed password. So that's excellent. That's what we wanted, right? Cool. Let's try creating another user with the exact same email address. I just wanted to see what kind of an error we were going to get here. Okay, so now I'm getting inside my errors. I have a error MSG, so we have an E. That's code of 11,000, and that's telling us that we have a duplicate document, right? So this is why if we're dealing with a situation where we have records that or documents that need to be unique, we have to handle the errors slightly differently than the normal way. Because if I said e.errors, that would give me all of this stuff, but it wouldn't give me those key value pairs that I was expecting when we were doing our other error handling, right? The structure of the JSON looks a little bit different. All right, cool. So what else do we need to do? We're successfully able to register someone. We also want to be able to log them in, right? All right, let's try that. So let's go back to our users controller. And let's create a login method. All right. So inside here, the first thing I'm going to want to do is to actually try to find this user by email, right? So how do we do that? Anyone give me the syntax on that? So we'll say find one, right? So the condition that I want is I want the email to be equal to, whoops, the rec.body.email, right? Okay, so if this works, if I get a user, then let's have some callback function, right? If I don't, I don't know. Let's just return it back. Errors E. Okay, so if I get back a user, that means that I found the user in my database, right? So what are we going to do at that point? Say that again?
We set the current user to that user.
Have we authenticated the user yet, though? All we know is that, yeah, we have an email address in our database. That's it, though. Do we know if the password is right?
Yeah, we need to check it too.
We need to check that, right? So if user and then we'll just put an else here. So if there was no user, then that means that we didn't even find them in the database, right? Okay. So here we'll just say res.json. I'll just say status failed. Something like that. Yeah. Okay. So if we have a user, now we have to actually check their hashed password. So let's go back to our documentation here. And let's see if we have like a check PW. Compare is what it is. Okay? So if we run this compare function, that will allow us to take the plain text password that they entered in our form and compare that to the hash that's in our database, right? So let's do that. So let's go back to our code here and say, I'm going to create some space here. So we'll say bcrypt.compare. I'm going to take the plain text password, which again is going to be rec.body.password. And then where am I going to get the hashed password from? User.password. Don't sound so excited. All right. So again, we've got a promise situation, right, with a .then and a .catch. If I get into my .then, what does that mean? Should mean that the password they entered matched the hash password that was in the database, right? Okay. So here, let's just say, we'll do a couple things, right? We want to add this user to the session like we did in the other case. So we'll say rec.session.userid. And again, that's going to be our user._id. And then I'll probably just send back something through JSON saying status success. Okay, cool. .catch means that something was wrong, right? The password did not match, so I can just send back something basically saying that status failed. you failed, right? Okay, cool. So the only other thing that we need to do is we need to add this to our routes as well so that we have a login route. So let's go back to our routes here, and we'll say app.post/API/users/login, and then I'm going to do usersctl.login.
Using API for this kind of thing? That isn't really part of the API.
Sure it is. Why isn't it?
Logging in and using
Yeah.
part of the API.
Because remember, our front end is completely independent from our back end. So this is just part of our data, right? You want to prefix it with something else?
I was just going to say like /user/login.
No, this is part of the API.
So you want people to have access to their own password hash.
Well, how do you mean we're giving them access to their own password hash?
Well, when they log in, they see their JSON files with everything.
Yeah, I mean we could change that. I agree with you there. Yeah, so let's make a quick alteration here. So when we register, rather than just res.jsoning the user, maybe we can just return like a couple things about the user, right? So let's say user, and I'll just say first, which could be user.firstname, last, user.lastname. All right, fair enough. I was thinking about that before. It's just like in the interest of kind of getting through this quickly. Anyway. Now also keep in mind too, if they see their password hash, that doesn't mean that they can use that to log in. Right? Okay. So let's just test out our login functionality and see if that's working the way that we expect it. So if I change this to users/login, and then let's say, oops, I just want to pass in my email address. Dang it. Okay, so what this should give me is a status of success, right? Because this was my correct password. So let's try it out. Cool. So that's what we wanted. We successfully logged in, right? And now our user ID should be in session. What if I pass in a bad password, bunk password, status success? What is that? All right, so let's check and see what this actually returns. So if I go here, compare function, oh, I see. So it looks like actually what they're returning us is a Boolean. They're returning us a true or false. So inside my .then, I need to evaluate what came back from the compare function and see if it was true. So let's change our logic slightly. So inside compare, inside my .then, we'll call this result. I guess we'll just get rid of this guy here then. Okay, cool. So if result, then we want to do all of this logic, right? So let's just bring that up in there. Else, that means that I had a non-match, right? So we'll just do res.json status failed. All right, so let's test that one more time. There we go. That's what we're expecting. So it failed the second time around. Put the right password back in. Success. Okay, cool. So now we got what we want. We also probably want to be able to log out, right? It's a pretty typical functionality. So let's go create that guy. So log out. I don't really need the request, so actually I do need the request, never mind. Res. Okay. How do we clear our session? Is it rec.session.clear? It's destroy. Okay. It's rec.session.destroy. So let's do that. Rec.session destroy. Okay, so I'm just going to send basically a status of success. Same thing, like we successfully logged out, right? Success. Okay, excellent. Let's add that to our routes real quick. So we'll make a delete request to API/users/logout. Okay, and let's just hit that real quick. So if I change this to a delete request, log out. Didn't I just add this route? Delete users, log out. Oh, the callback. Whoa, Jesus. Hello. Yeah. All right, so let's try one more time. So success. I've destroyed my session. Fair enough. Now the only other thing that we probably want to write is just a function where we can retrieve the current user. Okay, so let's make sure that somebody's logged in. So let's create another method inside here. So get current user. Oh, jeez, what happened? Forgot a comma. That's why it's growling at me. All right, so we need to get the session ID, right? So let's say if rec.session.userID. Actually, let's just save it to a variable first. So let's just say const user_id equals rec.session.userID. Okay, so if I have a user ID, I'm going to want to go get that user from the database, or at least like some basic information about it, maybe first name, last name, that kind of thing. If not, I'm going to say, we'll just say user is null. So we'll say res.json here, user null. Okay, so here let's go find the user, right? So we'll do user.find by ID. I'm going to pass in the user ID, and then in my .then here, I'm going to take my user and just send it back. Okay, so let's add this to our route so that we can actually use it. Go back to our routes file here. We'll make a get request app.get. We'll just call it current users ctl dot get current user. All right, so let's try to make a GET request to that endpoint as well. Change this to GET users current. Okay, so in this case, our current user is null because we have logged that user out, right? Let's try to log this user back in. So we'll go post request to users/login, and I have my correct information there. Cool, status success. And then let's do a GET request to users current again to make sure that I'm actually in there. But again, we're passing back this hashed password. Maybe we don't want to do that, right? Maybe let's just pass back the first name and the last name of the email. All right, just to be better devs here. Okay, so I'll make this little object here, and we'll say first is user.firstname, last user.lastname, email is user.email. All right, let's try that one more time. Uh-oh, do you guys know why my user suddenly turned null? No, what happened was because my server restarted because I changed my code, I lost all my sessions. Yeah, exactly. So now we need to log in one more time. Post request. Okay, good. So I'm logged in. So another GET request. User is current. All right. Perfect. All right, so the only other thing that we need to do, now that we've got everything working the way that we expect on the front end, is we've got to do something, or I'm sorry, on the back end. We need to add it to the front end, right? This should be fun. So let's close out some of these guys. And let's get into our front end as well. I need to run the Angular app, so let me open up another terminal, go into my public folder, and then we'll go ng build -- watch. Okay. And then inside the source, I'm going to want to probably establish a new route where we can actually have this login reg happening, right? So let's go inside our app here. I'm going to create a new component where we'll have our forms. So let's go back into my public folder here, and we'll say ng gc to generate a component, and we'll just call this login. Cool. And then in my routing, let's go over here to add this new route as well. So right now I've got 3 routes, one of which is just an index route. I'm going to create a new route just with the path login. So let's go up here, path login, and then my component is going to be my login component. Cool, and then it auto imported for me, right? Excellent. So let's save that, and let's make sure that we can load up this login component. So I'll go localhost 5000 login. Oops. Oh, this is the issue I was having the other day. You guys remember that? Where I just had like a blank page? Does anyone remember that?
Plugin.
No, but I turned off all of those JSON plugins, so it wasn't that. Gosh. But then when I tried it in Brave, everything was all good. Gosh, gosh, that was so bizarre. Inexplicable. All right, cool. So what we want to do on this page is we want to establish our forms, right? Okay, so let's go into our login component. Login works. Rip that guy out. We're going to have two forms. We'll have H2. We'll just have our login form up here. Form. Okay, so on submit, we'll say handle login. And then down here, we'll have our register form. Oops. On submit, let's handle register. Register. Okay, cool. So inside here, in my login form, I only want a couple things. I just want my email. Just type email. Email. Now again, we need to have our two-way binding, right? With our banana in a box. So we're going to say ng model equals, what are we going to call this? I'll call it login user dot email. All right. Now let's do the same thing down here. So input is going to be our password. This is going to be of type password. Password. And then our banana in the box this time around will be login user dot password. Right, then we need a submit button. Okay, cool. Why don't we get this login part working correctly, and then we'll come back and do the register, right? Okay. So let me close this guy out, and then inside my login component, let's bring some stuff in. So what do you think I'm going to need inside here?
Form module? Or you already have
No, I've already added the forms module to my app module. But I am going to need my service, right? So we're going to have to add some stuff to our service to handle this stuff. So let's go to our service and let's just add a couple things real quick. So in our HTTP service, we'll just do login user. And the login user is going to take in, it's just going to take in a user object, right, which basically have a email and a password. So I'll return this ._HTTP client, and then we're going to make a post request to /API/users/login, right? And then I need to pass in that user data. Cool. What's my register user going to look like? Pretty similar to this, right? Only the endpoint is going to be a little bit different. So I'm just going to say return this .http client .post, and this time I'm just going to go to API/users with the user, right? Finally, we'll also have logout, right? Logout user. That doesn't need to take anything in. So we're just going to do a delete request. We'll go .delete to API/users/logout. And then we're also going to have a get current user. And there we're going to make a get request, right? .get API/users/current. All right, that's all I need, right? Those 4? Because that's we just added 4 on the back end. So we need 4 on the front end. Okay, cool. So here, let's actually inject this in the constructor. So we'll say private HTTP service is of type HTTP service. Cool. And import it for us. And then let's create this function here. So we'll say handle login. Okay. But remember, I've got this banana in the box situation, so I need to create my login user. Let's put him up here. So user is going to be, oops, a blank email and a blank password. This should be called login user. Cool. So what am I going to do when login fires? Anyone? Right away, really?
No, I mean, like,
What if they
eventually.
failed?
Well, you're gonna check it first.
Okay. So let's do something like this. Let's say this.http service.login user, and then I'm going to pass in this login user right here, right? Okay. Whoops, why did I forget this? Yeah. Okay, so that's going to return me an observable, right? So I can actually subscribe to that. So let's do that. Dot subscribe. All right. That's going to give me back some data, right? Okay, cool. So if data.status equals success, that means that I successfully logged the person in. Then I will redirect it. Make sense? So let's say if data.success, then redirect here, else we'll say error handling. Okay, so if I'm going to do some redirecting here, what am I going to need to inject in this component? Anybody remember? How do we redirect people programmatically? Using the router, right? Yeah, exactly. So let's just do here, private router, router. Cool, brought it in there for me. Let's come down here and let's do this .router.navigate, and I'm just going to direct them to, I'm going to direct them to the index, right? Because that's where we had all the authors. Cool. All right. So let's see if we can get this guy working. So let's, oh man, I keep going there. So let's refresh this here. We've got our form. And let's open up our console so we can see if anything goes wrong. Let me insert my email and password. Did this even fire?
Because it's data.status.
Handle login. Yes, it is. Hold on, let me make sure the network request came back. So if we go like this, yeah. Boom, you are right. So we were checking the wrong thing, but actually you can see that all, however many of those login requests there were, looks like they all came back with a status of success. So we're good. So let's just change this. If data.status equals success, then let's do the redirect, right? So let me refresh that. Oh. Come on, Angular. was kind of stalling out on me for a minute there. Okay, so we successfully got redirected, right? Okay, cool. Now, how could I make it so that if we go to this index page that I'm not allowing people who are not logged in?
Check.
What's that?
We check if the user in the session or not.
Yeah, so we could use that get current user, right, to see if they are. So let's go to this index component here. Or not the index component, I think we called it all authors. So inside here, in all authors, we need to, we already have our service, right? Yeah, good, we've got our service. So when the page first loads up, let's go make a call to get the current user. Okay, so this HTTP service dot get current user dot subscribe. I don't know why I said data is Andy. Who is that? I don't know. It's bizarre. Okay, so if data dot user, then I'll just put a little note in here. Cool. There's a user. Else, what are we going to do? Bounce them, right? Get on out of here. So let's say this dot router dot navigate, and we're just going to send them back to the login page. Okay. So if I reload this, we should still be okay, right? No, we're not. I guess it reloaded our backend as well. All right, let's try it one more time. Okay. So this time we were okay. We got to this all authors page and we did not get bounced out. We got to handle register now, right? Or do you guys want to do a logout button? I'm kind of open-ended on this. So you want a logout button? All right. Yeah. All right. Well, let's just put it here in our main app component. That way, it's available everywhere. Crap. We don't really want it in our login page, though, right? That would look janky. All right. Fine. I'm just gonna add it here. So in our all authors component, let's just put a little button up here. So button logout click equals handle logout. And then inside here, let's just create a function for that, right? So handle logout. So what we want to do is we want to use our service to make that call, right? Dot logout user dot subscribe. I think here I'm just going to automatically navigate them, right? I mean, do we need to worry about failures? Probably not. So we'll go back to the login page. Okay, and then if I refresh, again, I've lost my session because my backend was restarting. Okay, let's press this logout button. And very good. So if I try to go again to my index route, notice how I got pulled back to the, yeah. All right, cool. So the only thing that we're missing here is register. Let's add that real quick. Login component, Close a couple of these guys. All right, I need another form. I'm probably gonna grab some of this. Always be careful when you're copying and pasting because bugs creep in, right? All right, so let's change these models. Instead of login user, I'm gonna have register user. And then let's do first name and last name. So first name, first, we'll say banana in a box, ng model is going to be our register user dot first. And then I'll just duplicate this down one time. Last name. Change this to last. Okay. Now back in my TS file, I also need to have a register user, right? So we'll have first blank, last blank, email blank, password. Oh. Okay. Now let's do handle register. Oh man. I don't think we will. I don't think we're going to do that. Thanks for the suggestion, though. I appreciate that.
Just double check by yourself.
Yeah, I'll leave that as an exercise for you guys, right? Just because I'm so nice. Okay. Dot subscribe. We've got our data, which is any. So our logic inside here is basically going to be the same thing as this, right? Only if we're registering, we're not going to get back success, we're going to get back a user. I think, right? Isn't that what we were sending back when we registered? We sent back some part of the user object. We sent back an object that had the first name, last name, and the email. Okay. So let's say, I'm going to copy this, but I'm going to slightly change it here. So we'll say if data.user, then let's do our redirect, else there would be error handling. We're not really going to deal with error handling today because you guys have already seen how that all works, and you could definitely do it on your own. But let's see if we can at least register a new user. So let's refresh this guy here. Cool. Who wants to be the user? Lance is our user. Thanks for volunteering, Lance. Appreciate it. Wait. Oh, Wad? Sorry. No offense, man.
Creating nicknames for everyone.
No, that was not intentional. All right. Okay, so Lance was successfully registered, and you can see I made this post request. Oh, that was my, I'm sorry, that was my get request. Where's my, was this the one? Yeah, so this is what I got back. So I sent this request to /API/users. It was a post request, and I received back just his first and his last. I guess for some reason I didn't include the email. Whatever. All right, yeah, it's okay. Is there anything else you guys want to see with this? Because we've already been at it for a long time, and I don't want to put anyone to sleep.
It's up to Tom.
Tom's the, yeah. You feel good about this, Tom? Yeah? Okay. All right. Any questions before we break? No? All right. Yeah, it's time for the Pong tournament. So let's do that.